My purpose will be to facilitate a discussion on one of the items that the heads of government will deal with, namely the question of the future of ACP-EU relations in the context of the 8th Summit of ACP Heads of State and Government, which is scheduled to take place in Papua New Guinea on the 31st of May and the 1st of June. I like to say that the ACP Group has its foundation in the Georgetown Agreement. Georgetown is, of course, the capital city of Guyana, and the leadership that participated in the formulating of the ACP Group was very much the Caribbean. And therefore, this in particular occasion, this occasion in particular will be very significant in how we see the future of a transformed ACP, looking at not only how we can restate our commitment to be united and the solidarity that held us together as a combined force in dealing with common problems of developing countries, but also to see what type of relation we should entertain and pursue with the European Union now that we're in a very different context than we had in 1975 when the first relationship was established under the Lome Agreement. Well, I'm hoping for a big turnout. In one way, the Caribbean heads would share a sense of responsibility because it was the Caribbean's turn to host the summit, and it was likely to be hosted in one of our Caribbean countries, and then it has now shifted to the Pacific. So I'm sure there's a commitment, but also the subject areas that will be treated, and the timing is so significant given the great commitment that Caribbean heads have provided both to the Sustainable Development Goals and also more recently to COP21. As predominantly small island states, low-lying coastal states that we all are in the Caribbean and in CARICOM, we intend to look at ways and means by which our combined strength will address the implications and also the implementation of what is related to COP21, and of course how the Sustainable Development Goals can make a difference in our planning. For that reason, the theme of the summit is the ACP Group responding to the challenges of sustainable development. It's absolutely important for the Caribbean and the Caribbean governments to take seriously the future relation, because there is an underlying tendency that we can be fragmented and left along the lines that has occurred with the economic partnership agreements, which is an emphasis on regionalization. That dilutes the possibility of the 79 countries in the ACP having a common voice and expressing their solidarity on major issues related to trade, major issues related to political engagement, to governance at the global level, but also for development cooperation. We must see development cooperation in a much more enlightened way. It is not a question at all now of being anxious to receive aid, but to know how development financing can be supportive, conducive with the goals that societies have set. And the goals that societies are setting in the Caribbean will also be mirrored in the larger Sustainable Development Goals: food security, nutrition security, energy questions. But also we want to see trade much more as an instrument that is going to help to transform our economies. And we have to address the supply side constraints. We do that much better by learning from each other in the South, and we do that much more by looking at the ways and means by which the new regulations that are coming into these markets, the markets of the developed world, need to have a common approach. The illegal fishing regulations, the questions of standards that are being introduced. So we have to do all of this in a much more unified and a coherent way. The continuing membership and effective participation in the ACP Group is fundamental, as I try to convey, to us understanding not only the market, but also understanding the global issues that we better address in a unified way. Of course, from the point of view of development cooperation, the EU and the European Development Fund, which is a fundamental aspect of our relationship with Europe, and that exists as a means by which we can have development assistance for major concerns in our countries. And that funding has been able to be predictable, has been able to look at our long-term plans in the region in a significant way. What we have to do now is together bargain with Europe to understand better the concerns about middle-income countries. We're not the same as the majority of African countries that are least developed, but because we're middle-income countries, we have to look at ways by which we can be assisted in mobilizing domestic resources. We have to look at ways and means by which we can, in fact, benefit from the programs of linking us and access to technology, to higher education, research, innovation that is possible in Europe. And doing that in a legally binding contractual agreement gives us an access and an opening that is different from just having a declaration of wanting to work together. Most important, my going would really be an opportunity to listen to what are the goals, what are the concerns of our heads of state and government, but also how the region as itself would like to see ACP playing a more effective role. As you know, we recognize that there are national indicative programs, and these are being reduced significantly in the Caribbean given our middle income status. But then there's a regional integration program, and the regional program under the EDF is to be complemented by what we can do at the intra-ACP level. And that is why the intra-ACP level is one in which the Caribbean will play a much more significant part in dealing with certain matters such as enhancing our health systems, but also looking at ways in which an integrated approach to our commodities for moving them up the value chain can be undertaken by working with other countries.